It's that time of year again, Banlist season, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over what I think is going to get hit on the next ban list. So probably my guess is it's going to come out sometime before YCS Niagara and after the European Nationals. So what do I think is going to get hit this list? So for the banned cards, there's only one card I feel like that needs to get banned. Like, no other cards in the game are as problematic as this card, and I think the game would be in a good place if Konami would just hit Mystic Mine. That's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. I'm only kidding, of course. Unfortunately, the game does need some more fixes than just hitting Mystic Mine. So for the actual ban section, I think they're going to hit Artifact Scythe, Halka Fibrax, and Harpy's Featherstorm. So Scythe is a big problem in the game still, even though not every deck is playing the Halka Fibrax lock. It's still an issue because of a card like Artifact Sanctum. The fact that now you have just 3 free turn skips or almost auto wins in most cases when going first just makes it so it's incredibly difficult for your opponent to be able to have out to not only your regular board, but also have to deal with a trap card like Artifact Sanctum. It just makes it super unfair. It just makes it so when you're going second, you kind of have to draw your 1 of red reboot in order to really have a chance, and that's just not really viable. So I think hitting Scythe would make it so it would not only solve the Hulk problem, which quite a few decks can actually still put up. Like, even Sprite can put it up because they are linked to, so just keep that in mind. But it also hit the Artifact Sanctum, which is a big problem, in my opinion. So hitting Scythe would be good. Speaking of Halka Fibrax, I also think Halka Fibrax is going to be banned. This is because I don't think they're going to be willing to hit cards like Chaos Ruler or Emergency Teleport, just because they're super big parts of the Punk deck, and the new Punk cards in Power of the Elements that just come out. So I assume Konami would still want to keep the Punk stuff around, like keep Punk as a viable deck. And hitting Hulk doesn't kill the deck by any means. It's like a small slap on the wrist to the deck. It also makes it so Hulk in Sprite isn't played, and that does take away like their option to summon like hand traps and like bounce it back to their hand. Sprite is still obviously going to be a really powerful deck. Hulk was never an integral part of the strategy, but also taking Hulk away makes it so it makes it more difficult to access those powerful tuners like Red Rose Dragon, because Red Rose Dragon is still an incredibly powerful card, even though not a lot of decks are playing it. I still think getting rid of that would be good. But if anything, Konami needs to hit at least one of Halka Fibrax or Scythe. Taking Halka Fibrax away, if they for some reason keep Scythe around, it'll make it so like Scythe is a bit harder to access. You have like 3 Trap Tricks and 3 Sanctums, which is still annoying, but at least you won't be able to search it with your engine with like Dagda or something. So yeah, hitting Hulk I think is a pretty good hit. It's just been a long time coming. This card is incredibly powerful. It facilitates a lot of different things, and of course now with people actually using this effect to tag out, they can go into crazy stuff like King Calamities, which just ends your turn, or it goes into Wonder Magician to hit the Scythe. And then finally, the last card, Harpy's Featherstorm. Yes, it's only really used in Floowandereeze, but this is also one of those cards that's just like a win button, a turn skip. Your opponent really just has no out to it. It's not like a full like monster board where there are cards like Dark Ruler No More, Ultimate Slayer, Forbidden Droplet, stuff like that. This is just, there's just really no counterplay to this other than the 1 of red reboot. And I think since Konami's probably not going to give us red reboot back to 3, I think this is definitely a big problem that needs to be addressed. It's just a free turn skip that makes going first for the Floowandereeze deck just already more unfair than it is. They already have so many tools to help them go first, and adding in Harpy's Featherstorm just makes it so it's impossible for you to go to play second into them. So yeah, hitting these like auto win cards that have like little to no counterplay at all, I think definitely something Konami needs to do. It's not even like a floodgate where you can draw into a backward removal, because they can always just chain this card. So that's it for the ban section. I think hitting these would be fine. Obviously they're not going to hit any of the new cards like the Sprite or the Chillaments cards, because those are the new decks that are out of Power of the Elements. So hitting these would make it so the format's just a bit healthier in my opinion. Next up for the limited section, I think there only needs to be 1 hit to the Adventure Engine being right to 1 The reason why it's not like two Enchantress 2 right like the OCG did, I think hitting right to 1 is a little more fair, just because Enchantress can actually be negated. You can negate it with like Ash Blossom, Call by the Grave, DD Crow if they Foolish Burial it, Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. There's just so many ways to stop Enchantress, but there are like pretty much no ways to stop Rite of Aramis here. So it makes it more likely that you'll actually be able to stop the Adventure Engine from coming out in the first place. And so your opponent will be down to like 3 copies of Enchantress, 1 copy of Foolish Burial, and 1 copy of Right. So 5 copies of Right. And even though Enchantress can add from the graveyard, I still think this is a very needed change, just because of how powerful the Right engine still is. You can still play it in a deck like Sprite, and it'll still be incredibly powerful. Makes it more difficult to go second, because your hand traps need to be drawn in multiple copies now in order for you to actually be able to play through their Griffin Negate. And yeah, hitting just this one part of the Adventure Engine I think would be enough. It'll probably still see a bit of play, but it'll eventually slowly phase out of the format, and I think that would be a good thing. The next card I'm going to be talking about is Dimension Shifter. Dimension Shifter is also one of those just win button cards, like that your opponent really doesn't have an out to. There is only 1 Call by the Grave, so essentially it's like the same idea as Harpy's Feather, Storm Red Reboot is at 1, Call by the Grave is at 1. There just really is little to no out to Dimension Shifter, and Dimension Shifter can be played in quite a few meta decks now. It's not even just Floowandereeze now. You can play in Exosisters. There are like some Sprite lists that are playing it as well. And the fact that it can just be a turn skip for most, if not all, like the decks out there, just makes it so I think it needs to get hit. Hitting it down to 1 will probably make it so no one will really play it. They might still play it at 1, but it'll make it so your opponent won't see it as often, which is fine, I think. Floowandereeze can still like do some crazy shenanigans with like Ryza to recycle it, but just not seeing it as often when going second will make it a lot better for the decks to actually be able to go first and actually be able to play and not worry about a card like Dimension Shifter. Finally, the last card that's limited, Spellbook of Judgment. I think this card can come back. It's a decent card, but I think it's like out of its prime right now. I don't think anyone's really gonna be playing like spellbooks, and like even if they are, I don't think it does anything that's like particularly unfair compared to like today's meta. Yes, you get to add a lot, but this is during the end phase, and as far as I know, the things you add during the spellbook cards that you add during the end phase just don't really do anything on your opponent's turn. So if your opponent's just able to kill you that on the next turn, it doesn't matter how much advantage you generate. Yes, you can summon cards like Jowgen from your deck, but I think nowadays with like the like modern deck building, there's just a lot of outs to monsters. So I think there will be enough outs to a card like Jowgen. I guess only time will tell, though. I definitely think they were preparing to bring back Spellbook of Judgment to 1, though. Next up for the semi-limited section, I think Konami will promote like diversity in the meta. So Gazelle to 2, the Salamangreat deck can also use Mathematic Circular as like a generic Cypress extender. This would hopefully make Salamangreat just a tiny bit more viable as like a rogue strategy or a tier 2 strategy, just to diversify the meta a little bit. Gazelle is still an incredibly good card, but I don't think it's broken by any means. Putting it back to 2 would be fine. Just a little extra power boost to the Salamangreat strategy. Also makes it so they don't lose as hard to like Desires banishing their one of Gazelle. I don't really think it'll make Salamangreat like an incredibly powerful deck. I just think it'll make it a little more appealing or viable. So just a little more variety in our meta. Speaking of that, Performapal Monkey Board, I don't think this card is not really doing anything at 1. I think putting it to 2 also wouldn't really do anything. Pendulums are kind of like always just in a tough place because a card like Anti-Spell Fragrance exists. And Anti-Spell Fragrance is just a pretty commonly cited card nowadays. Performapal Monkey Board also maybe like pushes some of the new Pendulum support. I don't think you play it in like any of the new Pendulum decks like Valiants or like Draco Slayers, but it's just a good way to get people excited to play Pendulums again, perhaps, and I think that's something Konami would want to have. The last 2 cards are both Tsuchinoko and Jackalope to 2. I think this would be in preparation for the Dark World Structure deck. These cards are really good in Dark Worlds. It's also pretty good in Tier Elements, so I think being able to just promote maybe like a little different bit of Tier Element decks out there, so like it's not all just like one build will make it so it's pretty good. It's a more healthy, like a more diverse meta. I don't think these are really going to be played with the Ishizu card when the Ishizu cards come out, so it's not like this is gonna suddenly like just break tier elements, in my opinion. So I think they can definitely come back to 2. Of course, these are still really powerful cards, and I think like the dangers just honestly are just in some of the best extenders the game has ever seen. But I still think putting it back to 2 wouldn't really make that big of a difference. And finally, the unlimited section. First of all, they can unlimit like all those irrelevant cards like Yatagarasu, Wall of Revealing Light, Dynamite Knight. Like you can put all those back to 3. They don't really do anything. They won't really change anything at all. I just think it's kind of like a cleanup, just making sure the semi-limit section and the limit section is a bit cleaned up, because all those cards definitely come back to 3. They don't really do anything. Trickstar Light Stage, I think can also come back to 3. Trickstars, I mean, in the modern day Yu-Gi-Oh, I don't think their strategy is really good enough to go second. It's like already going first, they kind of have to rely on drawing like non-engine cards for them to be really scary. So like cards like Duel and Lockbird, of course, pair really well with Reincarnation, but you do have to hard draw a card like Duel and Lockbird. Light Stage is like a great extender in like some decks, but like there just isn't a card that you kind of want to turbo out with the Trickstars as generic monsters anymore, because Verte Anaconda, of course, isn't a thing anymore. There's no more like Anaconda you can turbo off of this card, so I think putting it back to 3 would be fine. Same thing with a little different with Tenki. Tenki is great in the Tri Brigade strategy, of course, but now Tri Brigades can actually be played with sprites. So I think putting Tenki to 3 may motivate some people to try out like the Tri Brigade sprite variant more. It's a really cool deck, and it'll definitely make it so you aren't seeing the same sprite build every single event that you go to, and I think it make things a little more interesting. Tri Brigade, if you play it like as a pure deck, it'll be like a tier 2 rogue contender. It won't really change anything. So I think putting Tenki to 3 is absolutely okay. That's just my quick thoughts on this ban list. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. If you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. But with that being said, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.